All right. I will call our meeting to order. This is our policy committee of the School Board of Waukesha for July 14th, 2015. And has the meeting been posted?
Yes, we have been posted.
Thank you. Do we have any citizens? I kind of think not. Okay. So we'll go on to our action items. We did not meet in June, but we have minutes from May, and they can stand as read unless there are corrections. Any corrections, any changes? All right, they'll stand as submitted. So then we'll move on to our first action item, which is policy 5121, grading, and I don't know if who's addressing this with us. Looks like a gang.
Jody and Tim will be here to address
Okay,
policy 5121.
all right. When you're ready, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Ms.
Sure.
Somerville. Right, we'll bring to your attention first 5121. If you recall, a few months ago, we brought the policy to you around the advanced placement language after the Curriculum and Instruction Committee approved that. And so
Right.
made some changes after the CNI board approved the new grading policy, or not grading policy, grading language and practices, right, at the middle school and the high school level. And so we're bringing it to this committee today. I asked Lynn Cummings actually to print you out a clean copy simply because you can see how many strike-throughs we're
Yes.
dealing with. And so I thought it would be a little easier for you to look at a clean copy as well, so you can really hone in on the practices that we are referring to and speaking of here. So I guess really what I want to do is just open it up to your questions, if you have any, around the new language that we're suggesting.
I do.
Ms. Brzink?
Jody, you said middle school and high school, isn't the grading policy for all students?
It is for all students, absolutely. You can see the language in Roman numeral 1 talks about grading, and number 2 in best practices, that is all encompassing of K-12.
Okay.
We were very purposeful in not making specific policy language around specific letter grades, et cetera, simply for the fact that we would perhaps have to come back over and over again. So we
Right.
tried to word the policy in an umbrella format that would be all encompassing of just general best practices in the areas of grading scales, and then the advanced placement piece, so.
You say, in the fresh copy, the first thing I notice is a spelling error
Ooh, good call.
on the first page, line 30, judgment, on the yellow sheet.
Oh, on the yellow sheet? Okay,
See that
I'm
one,
looking
or
at
no?
line
Thank you.
30.
Line 30 on the yellow sheet.
It can have an E, but it often preferably does not. But it shows up both ways.
So,
in
yeah,
the
it does.
dictionary.
But then
So, I don't know.
as it goes on, then the next time it's mentioned, there's not an E.
So we have to be
We should be
consistent.
Consistent throughout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you for the.
Okay, one more question, please, Madam Chair.
absolutely.
Okay, Jody, on the very last page of the yellow handout, which was the sheet that contains all of the changes, way at the bottom of the last paragraph, it talks about a ranking and tie-breaking procedures that is established by the district, and about the process being consistent from school to school. Is that information open to the public, or is that not open to the public?
I'm sure it would be.
Because I,
Tim
you know,
is saying-
If this is for class rank,
Right.
I
Yeah.
believe class
Oh, yeah,
rank
it's
is in
under-
a different policy. It's under the graduation policy.
Okay.
And it's delineated there.
okay,
If
I'm
I'm
wondering.
not mistaken, I'm not 100% sure, but I can definitely look
Okay,
into that.
I'm thinking about valedictorian, salutatorian. I'm sure that sometimes it's just within a pinprick of each other. And I wondered, how you make that last-minute determination.
It's in there. I think.
It's in graduation?
5127.
Yeah, I believe it's in, there's
Should be
graduation class
5127.
rank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
5127.
Fine.
Good. Thank you. Any Ms. Reinschek, any questions? Okay. I just had two kind of quick comments.
Sure.
I think, and again, this is on the white sheet, so thank you for doing that to show us. But lines 33, that paragraph, I thought was really very well worded, and I like that, so I just wanted to
Okay.
mention that as a positive.
Good.
And then I did have a question on line 46, where it's number 3 under Roman numeral 1. It says, provide frequent opportunities for each student. Do we want to put and guardian, and/or guardian, or not? Do you see that on
What
line?
line are you on?
It's line 46. If you look at
Oh,
Roman numeral
46, okay.
1, number 3, where it says,
Yeah.
provide frequent
Good comment.
opportunities for each student, do we want to put and/or guardian? Do you see what it says? To obtain information as to his or her progress.
You're under Roman numeral 3,
No, it's
No.
Roman numeral 1, number 3.
number 3. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Provide frequent opportunities for each student to obtain.
And/or guardian.
Well, our parent.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it makes
everyone
sense.
has,
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah,
has
that would make
access, so that
sense.
would make sense.
So
Put
we can add
parent.
that? Okay.
Would we put parent and/or guardian?
Yeah, parent and/or,
That's
however
what
you
you're
want to word it,
suggesting,
but,
right?
that's right.
In
Go ahead,
line
Ryan.
50, it says students and parents. We say students and, so if we're gonna do line 46, students,
See, they have all the
maybe it's
yellow packets in there.
Be- be
and,
con-
or
yeah.
parents and guardians.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, then it'd be consistent, so, yeah, that would work fine, thank you. Because I know, and again, I don't know, it's frustrating as a parent, but when your child is in our school district and is under a certain age, you, the parent and/or guardian, obviously, have unfettered access, right? Then you send them off to the university,
Yeah.
you pay their bill, and the
Never.
university says, too bad, we
Right.
won't report anything to you.
That's right.
But
Right.
that's not our problem. I just want to mention that because it just
It's
used to
so
drive me
true.
crazy.
Conversation for the student records policy.
Yeah, yeah, your turn will come, Joe.
Yes.
And Ryan,
At a
and
future
here you are
meeting.
paying all this tuition and they won't
Right,
tell you anything.
right.
But anyway, so that doesn't apply to us. Okay, anything else on 5121? I think it's very good as stands. Okay, then I think we need a motion so we can bring it forward in August, correct? I'm thinking,
All right, I'll move that we
okay.
accept the revisions to policy number 5121, grading policy as presented and corrected.
Okay. Did you?
Oh, sorry, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I don't hear any other discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will bring that forward then in August. I'm sorry, yeah.
Is it possible for us to move this to the full board for approval and waive the 2 reading requirement and present that to the full board, just so this can be in place prior to the start of the school year?
I don't see a problem with that. I think that the board usually then has to vote on that waiver.
We'll present that
Yeah,
at
so
the
if you
meeting.
can put that in. that-
Absolutely, I just wanted to double check
Yeah.
with the committee first.
I don't see that as a
I
problem.
don't
so-
either.
Okay,
Yeah, so we
thank
can
you.
vote on that and then move right to voting on that.
Yes, yes, thank you very much.
Yep, nope, sounds good. We'll just count on you to put that on the agenda. Okay, then we are moving on to the next action item, 5131.7, weapons. So,
Yes, on June 25th, Governor Walker signed a bill modifying the Gun-Free School Zones Act.
right,
And really, this permits certain off-duty, out-of-state law enforcement officers to have a weapon on them on school premises. Prior to this modification of the law, school districts could sign agreements based off of administrative agreement with the individual law enforcement officer to carry on the premise without having kind of a general board policy. It had to be very specific to the individual officer who was off duty at the time. This doesn't impact our SROs or a law enforcement officer responding to a call at the school. This new act, if you look in the red section there, adds 3 areas to the law, or to what our policy could be. Through general board policy, we could grant access to those officers. I bring this to you just based off of the change in the law and the guidance that we received from council that just says you want to make your boards aware of this. We can include part or all of them if we would like, but I bring it to your attention for conversation.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I had some questions on this. I don't want to jump in, though, if others do.
I have a
Okay,
question.
Ms. Brzee?
My husband used to be a federal agent, and he was required to carry his firearm all the time. And so I think that police officers, even though they're off duty, need to carry, or I don't know if there's, I think there's an expectation, or there was an expectation, to carry their firearm at all times.
They're municipality by municipality. That usually comes from order of the chief of the Fire and Police
Okay.
Commission that the officer will carry at all times.
Okay.
You know, where this, you know, I guess it helps us in that while we may have, and this is kind of broad, these are just examples, we may have a parent who's a police officer who's off duty, dropping their child off at school. We may have off-duty officers who would come to the varsity football game, basketball game,
Right.
choir concert,
Right.
who are accustomed to carrying.
Right.
What this does is it grants them that ability to do so without saying that they're in violation of any sort of district policy.
What if someone comes to, may I go?
Yes, please.
What if someone comes to the building who, you know, carries a weapon, a concealed weapon just because? And are there signs on our door? I mean, I don't think that we have a sound device that would go off like they do at an airport, et cetera. But how would we know if somebody is armed, even though we would have a sign on the door?
You know, that really comes down to
Wouldn't.
when you look at what it takes to get a concealed carry permit, law-abiding citizen with a concealed carry permit knows that public schools, municipal buildings and such are off limits
I
for
hope so.
bringing their weapon on.
One
You know,
hopes.
Yeah, you know, policy, you know, looking at policy in of itself gives the district the position to say, yes, we grant this, no, we don't grant this. Day-to-day operations comes down to the vigilance of our principals, our teachers, you know, the kind of the general respect that the community has for our schools and our buildings. That's really where policy lies for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, I have to say, I am always worried,
I do too.
always worried. And at the university, too, we have a sign on every door, you know, no guns allowed, no firearms allowed. And you're thinking, okay, unless you're somebody who has a concealed weapon and wants to come in and shoot your class. I mean, so it's all based on hope.
Yeah, and for instance, I was at Cardinal Stritch a couple weeks back for
Yeah.
a 2-week summer institute, and walking in on each of the doors, there was the no weapons or firearms allowed on campus or in campus buildings. But you know, I'm sitting in a lecture hall with 150 people, and you know, you're just kind of hoping somebody doesn't show up.
Exactly. And that's where we are, you know, with our society right now, and sadly, it will take probably some other god-awful incident before that changes. I mean, I hate to be pessimistic, but I'm afraid I am, yeah. Ms. Brzee?
You know, Joe, those systems that, you know, county building, municipal buildings have, et cetera, are they costly systems?
Yeah, security systems are, metal detectors are, and they're out there, they're not just there gonna detect a gun. I mean, they
No,
will
no.
detect your car keys and your purse.
Oh, right.
You know, they get everything. So when you start thinking about access, even going back when I taught in the Milwaukee Public Schools where we had them, trying to access, they didn't have those up and running every single day. It was
Really?
more of a random check, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. Ms. Roneychek, sorry.
Sure, thank you. What happens when, let's say, a parent who has a concealed carry license and there is a weapon under the seat of their car or something, but they pull onto school property, to pick up their child, they're in violation?
They would be, yes, unless there's something that's changed. I haven't stayed too current on the concealed carry law that, you know, if there's been any changes to that. But going back to when it was first signed in, yes, you would be in violation of that Gun-Free School Act. It comes down to, you know, what happens. I mean, if it's seen, then, you know, people would notify police. But if it's, you know, tucked away in somebody's vehicle, I mean, again, you don't have somebody there checking vehicles for that specifically.
Okay.
Again, you know, knowing the number of people who have their concealed carry permits, they value them, and they're some of the most law-abiding citizens that you would imagine. I mean, they don't want to lose the ability to carry, so therefore they follow all of the laws.
The best ones do.
Yep.
I have just two
Sure.
comments. As we look at the red, and thank you again for doing that, that's so helpful. Let's see, it just says, oh yeah, that, the second red bullet,
Yes.
I mean, not to use a bad term. Anyway, a Wisconsin law enforcement officer who meets certain conditions, e.g., there needs to be an end parentheses as to where you want to put the end parentheses there.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just a tiny little thing, sorry. No, not a problem. And then as we say e.g. there, and then on the couple bullets down, we say certain conditions. So twice we use that, and I understand that phrase a couple times, I think 3 times maybe we use it. And I don't think we're really specific enough. Do we need to be more specific? Certain conditions, and then we say, for example, e.g. means for example, but that's not very comprehensive unless that's all we need
Yeah,
by
this,
certain conditions.
again, when we added these in, we took this right from what the law provides us and what the
Okay.
examples that were. I believe if you turn ahead to the June 26th bulletin, that's the last page there. This was the information that we received from Bulow and Vetter that helped us summarize what
Oh,
the
yeah.
law is and what the examples were. We used their language. Again, when you're trying to talk about a very sensitive area like this, you want to make sure that what you're putting into policy is what's recommended and what is consistent with
Okay.
the law.
Okay. All right, thank you, that helps. Certain conditions, I guess then we just mean e.g. Okay, so that's fine. Anything else? We don't say, it doesn't say, the law doesn't say, so obviously we don't have to say that somebody like this, who isn't our official SRO, because we're talking about unofficial people here, right?
Correct.
Has to stop in the school office and just say, oh, by the way, no?
No, they don't have to, and, thinking about kind of the practical application of that, the school secretary who's sitting there, people within earshot, the people that we're talking about here are highly trained professionals who pass, believe it's for active officers, it's monthly or yearly, range tests and everything like that. We're talking about people who are very qualified. Getting into kind of the dangers of it, these are the most trained people that we would have. They're not checking in on it. And I believe that if you're a concealed carry holder, just an average citizen who's going to a restaurant, you don't say anything. I think that by in announcing that at the school, you potentially would cause some perhaps undue fears among staff. That would be my assumption on it. If it's concealed and they're carrying, it's their business that they're carrying it.
Well, with the implication that they are there on an official reason, right?
They're
I
there
mean,
with a-
isn't that what we're talking about? These people, though they may be off duty, or probably have a reason to be there. They're not just picking up their niece.
Well, they could be just picking up their niece. They could just be attending the athletic event or the
Okay.
choir. This says that you're here for, you carry as part of who you are, what you're doing. For instance, you could be an off-duty officer. There could be an order that says that you will always have, a firearm on you. This just says you can come into the school and you don't have to have a specific agreement with the district as to why you're there and why you're carrying.
And you don't have to be in uniform.
Correct, off-duty.
Yeah, off duty. Interesting, the way the law reads, always interesting. Other questions or comments on this one? No?
Oh,
Yes,
just a comment,
sure.
not political. Just, when you think of all the things that have happened, in our country just within the last couple of years about people entering all kinds of buildings, churches and movie theaters and et cetera, et cetera. We could have those detectors everywhere. And I don't know that it would necessarily prohibit, those kinds of things from happening. Just a personal comment.
Right. And of course, now, this Wisconsin legislature has seen fit, and I'll try to make this not political, but to suspend the 3-day waiting period for purchase of weapons. So anybody in the heat of emotion can just run in and get it without a 3-day waiting period. So we, again, live in hope. We live in a society that is based on hope, that no one will come and do harm to our faculty, students, and so forth. Okay, with that note, I guess not to be too pessimistic, but this one we need to approve, but Lynn, we don't need to rush this one, right?
I think this could go through a normal process.
Yeah, so this, we could come up for the first reading in August and second in September.
Correct.
Okay, so we need a motion on this weapons policy.
I'll make the motion to accept the revisions to policy 5131.7, weapons in school as presented.
Okay,
Second.
all right, thank you, and I see no one else here at this point to speak to it, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so this will come forward in August for first reading and then September, and we'll take that up in due course. And that takes us to 6162, student assessment, and Jody is back here, so.
Right, just a couple things to bring to your attention. Again, the language in 6162.5, we tried to make more global in terms of assessments and using the word mandated assessments instead of the specific assessments that were originally written with the transformation of WKCE, Badger, or whatever's next, et cetera. So that's some of the most important changes there, just making some more global highlights, and then also infusing the two state statutes as listed, 118.016 and 118.30 that originally were not included.
Oh, yeah, okay, I see that, 0.16, okay, there's a reference. Okay, there's a lot to take in here,
Yes, there
Sure.
is.
because we get to good old No Child Left Behind and all kinds of good stuff here. So, are there questions or comments on this? Ms. Brezink?
Yes. Number 4, line 19 on the first page. It says, to engage, to provide meaningful information for a variety of users. Well, is it information regarding grading or
This is specifically.
Achievement or-
Student data, student testing data.
Assessments.
student testing and did? Okay.
Right.
Does it say that up above so that one would understand?
Where we list the balance assessment system in line 11, we talk of the
Right.
continuum of assessments, meaning summative,
Okay,
benchmark, informative, so.
fine. Then, may I go on, please?
Please do.
When we refer to state standards, we aren't referring to the Common Core, are we? No. We're referring to the Wisconsin state standards for education at all levels, correct? Okay,
And specifically assessments,
right.
yeah.
Then, under summative,
Okay.
is the, I'm thinking the purpose is to also, you tell me if you agree or not, I think summative also determines individual student learning at the end of a semester or school year. Is that correct? Or not? I mean, it doesn't say anything about student learning. It's talking about examining academic trends, comparing, norms, guiding necessary curricular changes, fulfilling accountability requirements, but it doesn't really say anything about summative assessments also determine individual student learning in a school year or in a semester. Otherwise, why would we assess? We wouldn't assess just for numbers 1 through 4, would we?
Not ideally, I mean, that's the teacher side, and you and I both speaking, that
Right.
screams to us, right?
Right,
That-
Jody,
That
right.
teaching and learning and
Right.
instruction.
But it's really about determining student learning, isn't it? And if it is, should that
5, out of 5.
add a 5, because it doesn't say anything about that we care or that we refer to or,
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
even in number 1, I think that's what it's trying to say,
but it doesn't.
talking about the old KCE or.
Yeah, right,
Right,
right.
Right.
Whatever that assessment's gonna be, if we're examining academic trends over time, we should probably just turn that to
Oh, student learning, right.
But that's all sounds macro. 1 through 4 is all macro,
It is. It
not
is.
micro. So what you're saying is we need,
The word student.
yeah.
I mean, that's
Student learning,
it's still a point, right?
yeah, yeah.
So how do we word that? How do you want to word that? To measure or to,
I just said determine, I didn't say.
determine?
To determine individual student learning. I mean, you may have a better suggestion, but
Yeah.
that's really what we're doing, is it not? And it's understandable by anyone who would access the policy handbook.
Almost to ensure rather than to determine.
Well, insure's fine, I can live with that.
From a, I mean, part of it's about accountability.
Absolutely.
So to ensure that there's student learning happening for our
Right,
individuals
right.
as well as to ensure
Right.
programmatic or
Right.
school.
And I know that that's the intention, but I think it's just
Right.
assumed.
We could add language, Ms. Brezink, I have a wonder for you. If you look in line 11, it does make mention of assessments being used to guide instructional and curricular decisions. So
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm like, that language sounds better to me, but are you still suggesting that you want that instructional specificity under the large-scale summative?
but it doesn't say anything about individual student learning.
Sure.
I understand guiding curriculum, absolutely.
Right, right.
But it doesn't say anything about,
To measure-
ensuring student,
What do you think?
student learning.
Okay, we can
So
add
if
that
we
in.
add a number 5 that says to
Yes.
ensure individual student learning, which is a very positive way to put it,
Absolutely.
Mr. Crone, I think, if we wanted to be neutral, we'd say to measure individual student learning. Hopefully ensure is a better way to put it. But then we would amend this and add number 5?
Mhm.
Okay. We could take that as, I think, a friendly amendment unless there are objections. But let me hear you.
Thank you. In line 49, it says to monitor student progress throughout the year. So,
But it doesn't say individual, I agree with you. That looks like it gets at it, but I think the key word maybe is individual. Otherwise, you could say student progress, that could be again macro and not micro, so,
But it also refers to the interim assessments versus the summative.
so I think it's good to have individual
Yes.
in there. I think that's good. Does that make sense, Lynn, or are you okay
So that
with
was
it?
on line 49?
Well, no, actually, line
It would-
39 is what we're looking at here, to add number
Add-
5.
A new
Add a
number 5,
yeah.
Yeah.
to ensure individual student learning,
Mhm.
but to address
Oh, for
Karen,
49?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
do we want to add individual
dual
student?
there, I just want to be sure.
Yeah, after monitor, do we want to put individual there too, or?
Do we need a motion to add that?
Well,
No?
we
No.
could take it as a friendly amendment, or we could
Okay.
go through a motion.
And mention it at the end, as
Okay.
amended.
Yeah, as amended.
Well, I just think it clarifies it.
Okay,
It's what we really do.
right, it does. But on 49, do we want to do that as well? Line 49?
Just put the word individual student progress?
I'm asking, I don't know. What's the
Well,
pleasure?
that would be consistent, wouldn't it?
Any objection? All right,
Okay.
so we'll add on line 49, individual.
Individual student progress.
Uh-huh.
And a new number 5,
Right, and a completely new number 5, which I think
In,
you got.
essentially line 39 as you look
39.
at it right now. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Other questions, comments, and, yes, Ms. Brzee?
Well, was just looking, I've got a note here under formative on the last page.
Mhm.
Oh, there's no mention of grading there. Should we not say or refer to grading? We're saying that formative assessments, occur within each lesson, but there are grade assignments, are there not? To any assessment that we give a student?
Well, in the formative process, some teachers are not using formative as part of their grade. If you recall, for a few years now, some
Okay.
teachers are using the 100-0 in the case of 0% formative.
Yeah,
So I don't know that it would be accurate to imply the grading piece under there as
Okay.
more of a feedback piece, as mentioned in line 13, and the monitoring of, by students in line 16.
that makes sense.
Good questions. Yes, Ms. Blanchett.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure you answered this with Barb on line 16 on page 1. When it says core academic areas, I know she asked that on line 25 when it talks about state standards, that's not Common Core, but when it says core academic areas, that's not Common Core either, is it, on line 16?
It is not.
Okay, excellent. And then on the very last page, it's,
Page 3?
yes, please.
Okay.
On, let's see, line 15, towards the end, it starts a new sentence. Wisconsin State Statute 118.30 states that upon the request of a pupil's parent or guardian, the school board shall excuse the pupil from taking an examination administered under the sub 1M. I'm just wondering what happens when a student is not assessed, and not the actual day where they might go into another room, but what happens overall if their scores are not entered? Does it harm the student? Does it harm the school? If, let's say, half of a child's class or a teacher's class is opting out, what happens then? What's the bigger picture?
The bigger picture as it relates to the individual student.
Well, I guess I'm thinking of how we're going through some changes as far as how we are looking at, I'm thinking of the word, I'm blanking on it, the teacher performance and all of those reviews. Well, if half of their class isn't being counted, or the test isn't being counted, or they're not even taking it, is that going to reflect on that teacher? What happens when that child goes on to another grade? Where do these tests go? Who's looking at the scores? And what happens if that child is not being
Kind of as a whole
tested?
aggregate, the school is being looked at and the district is being looked at from the state. You know, they've reported out for a number of years now how schools are performing in reading and mathematics. On the individual grade level, for instance, the teacher, you're able to look a little bit more at growth over time from one year to the next on a state assessment, looking at it as a broad group. From individual, looking at it on the individual student, it's an opportunity to determine if there's been growth in that particular area from, say, third grade to fourth grade to fifth grade. The broader conversation more, though, about what happens if kids opt out or half of a class opts out. Up until, I believe it was this year, part of the school report card piece reported test participation. And if too many students in a particular group opted out of the test, the school report card would have been impacted by not having enough students participate in the test. I don't know where that conversation is at currently at the state level with the Department of Public Instruction and the state legislature, but that was a component to the school report card, test participation. Test participation among the entire student population, test participation among the subgroups, students with disabilities, students with limited English proficiency, students of low socioeconomic status, students of color, for instance. If there weren't enough students participating there, the school could have been penalized on that school report card for that.
And I think that's important, and your question's a really good one. If the state, mandate comes back with punitive action, which is potentially there, it will reflect what happened, and I think we all read about it, in Texas, where a number of districts, all of a sudden, this individual teacher and school test scores were just going great guns. And it turns out that several teachers were counseling the students in their class that they knew would bring the average way down. Could you take a sick day? Could you not come? Seriously, that was going on. And so that kind of raised this whole issue of students opting out and who is opting out and why and all of that. So, I mean, that's in the air right now. I mean,
It raises, where does the state stand, for instance, as far as requiring student participation? How do we honor the rights of parents to opt their child out of a test? How do we maintain that, if it becomes a high-stakes conversation, how do you maintain that level of ethics, so that, that people don't act in an unethical manner? I mean, all of that stuff starts to play out. when you're looking at these state assessments, so.
But I think she had a part of her question, I thought that was interesting. How, if we pay teachers based on student achievement, although I don't believe it's been determined yet, but if we would do that, how would you do it if half the class didn't take the test? Yeah, I don't think that,
I don't know if there's a clear answer to that.
you know, I don't know either, I just.
But it will set off
you-
alarm bells, and I think that's what you're
Yeah.
saying, is at the state level, they're looking at that because of what has happened in some
You know,
districts.
what high-stakes decisions are being made around
Right,
student
right.
assessment.
You'd have to take what you have to begin with until, you know, somebody addressed it, you know, at the state level. But if 50% took it, then you would base that on 50% of the students. What else could you do? You don't have information or data, you know, and you can't create it or assume it. So, but that was a good question.
I have one more, or actually, it's just a comment on that, what you were talking about in Texas. I have a friend with 2 adopted girls from another country, and they've been here probably 4 years, maybe. And they were asked, she was asked to have them not take the test because it would reflect on their school. So it's actually
Hmm.
That's
practiced
wrong.
very locally. It
That's
is.
wrong.
So, just want to give
It's an issue, and I think if
Oh, yeah.
DPI is looking at it, that's probably a good thing.
But may I add one thing?
Go
But help me if I'm wrong, Joe. I know there are some special education students that could not take a written test. I mean, I think of,
That goes back, I think a couple of meetings ago, I'm not sure if it was in the curriculum committee or if it was in the policy committee, where we talked about the alternate assessment that had been in place when it was considered the WKCE. And that has since turned into the essential elements assessment, or I think it was the essential elements, where students who do have more significant needs
Right.
are assessed during the same time frame. However, they're assessed differently than the general population of students.
Sure.
and I believe that then the results of those tests wouldn't be included in
They
a
actually-
building test.
They
would
actually are. They're individualized based off of the student's IEP goals. So you look at the IEP, you look at the IEP goals, you assess those students based off of their IEP goals, along with that essential elements component. So you will get a score for all of the students in your school who
Are there,
participate.
really?
But disaggregated in what?
Disaggregated,
Correct,
right,
and you
that's the
saw that when
difference.
you looked at those
Yes.
school and district report cards.
Yes, because, you know, I can think of, you know, some severely disabled students that, you know, don't talk or don't see or, you know, and reading and writing are not a part of their curriculum. They have their own individual.
Correct. Going back to No Child
Plans.
Left Behind, they built that in, what was it, 2001? They
Yes.
built that into No Child Left Behind provisions.
Sure.
And that's continued forward through all of the curricular and assessment conversations that have happened.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you very much, and thank you for good questions. I think, again, we can take action on this and bring it forward in August for a first reading, if the committee so chooses.
Sure, I think we're ready to move it to full
Okay.
board. I move to accept the revisions to policy number 61, 62.5, student assessment, as presented and amended.
As amended, and Lean's got all of that. Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Jody. So with that, can we vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Don't hear anybody. Okay, so those 2 things will come forward in August for a first reading. The other one, of course, will waive the first reading. Now, that's all we have agendized. Is that correct? All right, I just want to make sure. And it appears to me, so tell me if I'm wrong, that for staff and the 3 of us, the 5 o'clock Tuesday seems to be a good time. Is that? So with that in mind, we'll be adjourning in a minute and to reconvene Tuesday, August 18th at 5. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.